All right, welcome my friends. Happy Friday, wherever you are in the world listening to this, watching this. I hope you're having a great day and also a great Christmas season too. And this is episode 646. So we are, if you guys want to check out the show notes or anything like that for today's show, the actual number is 646. So everything will be available at extremehealthradio.com/646. And this is going to be a good show because one of the things we talk about a lot on our show is environmental toxins and chemicals and poisons that are in our environment. And you start doing some research, you start poking around a little bit, and you start realizing, wow, we are exposed to so many toxins in our environment. And we're going to be talking with Callie Lyons here about her book, but it's just fascinating. He's doing some research, 84,000 chemicals in commerce, 62,000 of which I was researching are known toxic chemicals, and it's amazing what's allowed by our government and government agencies into our lives. And of course, the companies that create those toxins will do anything to defend their legitimacy and their ease of use and products around the world. And so it's up to us in order to make sure that we stay protected from these things. You know, we can't rely on any government agency to do that. And so this is why we have Callie Lyons on, and I'll introduce her in just a second. But if you guys are new to the show, we do live shows on Mondays and Fridays every week here on YouTube, on Facebook, everywhere else we can try to stream. And you guys can join the show at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time and ask questions, and we'll take some questions after the break as well. But let me just read you Callie's bio, and she's the author of the book called Stain Resistant, Nonstick, Waterproof, and Lethal: The Hidden Dangers of C8. She's a journalist and author living in the Ohio Valley, and her book is available on Amazon and libraries all around the world, and she's a warrior for public health, which is cool. She's done environmental investigations and has been featured in documentaries, including The Good Neighbors, Bad Blood, Toxic Soup, and Parched Toxic Waters by National Geographic. Wow, pretty cool. Her work has appeared in Nova's Whiz Kids and other in Mother Jones magazine as well. So she's been all over the place trying to educate people about this toxic chemical called C8. So Callie, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So first of all, before anything, we're right in the middle of Christmas season. How's your Christmas going so far?
Yeah. Oh, it's good.
Yeah, you caught up on your shopping?
Yeah, I love this time of year. Yeah,
It's
love
the
it.
best.
Love
Yeah,
it.
it's great, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was doing some research, and it's just amazing, isn't it? Just crazy to you how these governmental agencies that are supposed to be watching out for our health just allow this many chemicals into our environment. It's pretty nuts, right?
It makes me very sad. But of course, the EPA was not established for our protection. You know, it's President Nixon who established the EPA.
Oh.
And in an early challenge, actually, there's a place in the Mid-Ohio Valley near where I live that was kind of one of the first places the EPA tried to come to and enforce regulations. So it was Union Carbide, and I'm sure you've heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, EPA came in and said, hey, Union Carbide, you're going to have to clean it up. Kids across the river are getting sick. Union Carbide said, don't make us or we'll send everyone home.
What?
And they did. They did.
Really?
They sent their workers home for 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, the EPA blinked. Said, okay, we didn't really mean it. Just put your workers back to work.
Wow.
That's when we lost. That's when we lost.
What year was that?
Oh my goodness. It's 68, 69. It's right in that time. I'm sorry. I wish I could come up with a year, but it's fascinating that, you know, and of course now we pretty well know that industry runs the EPA.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
And with the
obvious, right? Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
yes, absolutely right.
yeah, with the amount of, basically industry runs the entire government. You know, it allows for these
Yes.
lobbyists to come in and donate billions of dollars, and of course they're going to side with them. And I mean, it makes sense, but the crazy thing is people
Sure.
don't realize that. Like people think the government's there to help them, and it's crazy.
Yes, I know. It makes me very sad.
I
And,
know.
you know, the kinds of studies that industry creates to confuse the issue, I mean, I can call it nothing other than junk science. It's unbelievable. In our case in the Middle Ohio Valley, despite the fact that thousands of people are getting sick with
Mm-hmm.
horrible diseases and cancer, there's still a strong will to back DuPont, the very people
Why?
who poisoned our water.
Do they not
Part of
know?
that,
Do they not know that DuPont's
oh,
responsible?
for some people, it doesn't matter.
Really?
For some people see poverty as a worse blight than cancer. That
Oh, it's so weird.
in West Virginia, we're used to the trade-off, though.
Okay.
We're used to coal mines. So we're used to not knowing if you're going to come home from work that day
Uh-huh.
because of your job, right? So people who get to work in a chemical plant like DuPont making Teflon, they feel like they've got it made. Like that's kind of the upper echelon for the jobs in our area. And those are lifetime jobs.
I'm assuming DuPont probably pays them pretty well, right, for that.
Oh, yes, they definitely do. Yeah, they
Yeah.
definitely do.
So is
Yeah.
DuPont, so make sure that I understand it. In my mind, DuPont
Mhm.
is like a paint company, right? But they probably do much more than that?
Mm. They do so many things.
Okay.
Yes, they do
What do they
so
do?
many things. Well, if we're just talking about like Teflon or perfluorinated chemicals, also we call them highly fluorinated chemicals,
Okay.
that's thousands of applications,
Mhm.
from Teflon to sizing that makes your jeans stay cleaner, to coatings for our upholstery, our curtains, our floor. It's hard to find something that DuPont doesn't have a hand
Really?
in your home. Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
is
And
DuPont the main? Is DuPont the main originator? Or no, 3M isn't 3M the company that provides DuPont those
yes,
chemicals? Is that how it works?
initially they did.
Okay.
Yes, initially they did. Now, it's very interesting the difference between 3M and DuPont. Okay, so 3M voluntarily phased out Scotchgard, if
Uh
you
huh.
might remember, from around 2000.
I do. Yeah.
That kind of triggered EPA to look at these chemicals closer. And because they were looking, an attorney was able to find out that, yes, we did have an exposure problem. But that exposure problem has grown from killing a herd of cattle
Mm-hmm.
to sickening the valley where I live. And actually, now we know that it's a problem everywhere. Uh, it's every military family who has lived on a base anywhere in the world has faced exposure. That's all of our military.
Wow.
All of our firefighters are exposed through firefighting foams. And not only that, their turnout gear. So just imagine every time a firefighter is running into a burning building
Mm-hmm.
to do their job, which is quite brave,
Mm-hmm.
the inside of their turnout gear is leaching these horrible cancer-causing chemicals directly into their skin. We're just now learning about dermal absorption, but it is a huge factor. And because of that, 2/3 of our firefighters are going to get sick with horrible cancers. And that's not my statistic. That is from somebody who worked for the CDC.
That's crazy. So you're just learning about dermal exposure. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about what
Yeah.
we know about that.
Well, that's basically, people can understand if you drink something and it has
Uh-huh.
poison in it or it has a contaminant in it, it's easy to understand the pathology.
Right.
But what if you're showering in it? What if you're wearing it?
Uh-huh.
It does make a difference because it seeps into your skin. And, with firefighters, it's the heat that causes that, that chemical to seep, basically, to seep or leach or, you know, become exposed,
Wow.
to expose your skin, basically, right? So uh, the the thing with the firefighters is particularly disheartening because it's companies like DuPont that make coatings for the personal protection gear, and then they They have huge parties for firefighters unions. They have conventions. They have cruises. And it's all about how we're a family and we are about protecting you.
Right.
That is a hideous deception.
So check this out. I'm going to bring up, it's so crazy in how they word these things. So I'm going to bring up this page. I actually went to 3M. So if you guys are watching on YouTube or Facebook, this is the kind of languaging that Callie was just talking about. This is the 3M website, and the very first thing it says on here is committed to improving lives. And then there's a button. If you guys are listening on audio, on 3M.com, it says, discover how 3M improves life. I mean, it's just crazy how they language this stuff, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
My goodness.
It is. For the longest time, DuPont's claim was no human health effects. But they knew better. They knew better because in 1981, they removed all of the females who worked in the Teflon division. Now, that's pretty extreme. But the reason they did that is because 2 of 7 babies born to women who worked in the Teflon division had very serious birth defects. 2 of 7.
That's almost 50%.
How scary is that?
Right.
Yes. And that's at birth. So
what kind of birth defects were they having?
They were having like facial birth defects. Bucky Bailey is the baby that suffered the worst. He had 30 plus surgeries basically on his face because of these birth defects. Now, today he's an advocate. He's visiting Congress and asking for change. But I'm talking about a person who was injured by this substance. And the way that the chain goes.
I'm sorry, is this Bucky Bailey that you're talking about on the screen here? Is that him?
I don't see. Oh, yes, this is Bucky Bailey.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is, yeah.
Okay, sorry, continue on. I just wanted to see if I had the right guy.
You do, yes. So, God bless him.
Yeah.
He was the baby that by far got the worst, of the birth defects.
Oh, my goodness.
And his mother basically had to continue to work for DuPont so that they had insurance to pay for what was wrong with him.
Oh, my gosh. His mom had to continue working there just to have the insurance.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That is absolutely crazy. Wow. So what kind of work does he do now?
I'm sorry, but I don't know what kind of work he does.
Wow.
But he has recently, been a very strong activist, and he is in the movie Dark Waters. There's a cameo appearance with him.
Interesting.
Yes. So Dark Waters is a Mark Ruffalo movie about the attorney who took on DuPont for the people who live in the Mid-Ohio Valley. And it's very interesting and very relative to our conversation today, because one of the lines from the movie that I feel like is so strong. And we got to this point as, I've been covering this for years, so I watched the process happen. And at some point you go, okay, if it was that bad, the EPA would step in and do something about it.
Right.
But then when you find out that's not true, that yet we are poisoned and hundreds of thousands of us are poisoned, and it's not the EPA's goal to step in and save us from it.
No.
So who protects us? We do. That's the line in the movie.
Wow.
Who protects us? We do, right? We have to be smart enough consumers to not be tricked by industry, to not fall for their language games, to seek out the real science, and then to base our consumer habits on what we believe to be true. And, a precautionary principle.
So, Callie, I want to ask you, in terms of a lot of people may not have heard. We did a show a while back about benzene, and this man who's done like mountains of research on benzene, and his wife ended up passing away, and that's how he got started researching where benzene comes from. But a lot of these people, most people don't know. Like, I'm involved in natural health. I've never really looked into C8 as a chemical. So, where do we have to look out for these products? I know you list them in your book and you've
Mm,
discussed them many times, but can you give us a list so that we know what to look out for?
sure. Right. Well, I used to say, you know, it's easy for us to think that a contaminant doesn't really involve us. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
in 2007, when the book came out, I said, if you've had microwave popcorn, McDonald's French fries, or used Post-it notes, you are exposed. That's a short list.
Okay.
It's pizza boxes, candy wrappers. I mean, you know, the list goes on and on and on. Even our foil has a coating on it. A lot of the paper that we use has a coating on it. It goes on and on and on. There are thousands of consumer applications. So food packaging is a serious problem. When we talk about microwave popcorn,
Uh-huh.
that's an assured dose of perfluorinated chemicals.
And where is the
Unless
chemical in that packaging? On the inside of the bag?
it's on the inside. You know how there's like a panel that gets super hot so that the popcorn kernels will get hot and pop.
Uh-huh.
That's it. That's the catalyst. I mean, that part of the bag there has perfluorinated chemicals in it, and the catalyst is heat, and that makes it go right into the microwave, right into the popcorn.
So the
So
question
then,
really is obviously I'm going to bring up a website in a little bit that 3M has put up that we kind of discussed before the show went live. But
yeah,
so the question really is like, how much of these chemicals are we being exposed to, and are there studies showing? I mean, I honestly don't even care if there's studies or not. If it's a man-made chemical, it shouldn't be in our environment. It doesn't matter if it causes cancer to me or not. But
right.
people are going to be listening, and they're going to be wondering, okay, are there studies showing this causes cancer? And if I've opened cardboard boxes, we've all had microwave popcorn in our life,
Right.
how much needs to build up in the body for it to be really a problem, do you think?
Actually, modern science lets us know that it does not take very much at all.
Really?
There was not very much in Bucky Bailey's system.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't take much at all. It has to do with your body chemistry. And so many things do, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
This is an endocrine disruptor. So very specifically, it gets into your body chemistry and it changes it. And some people who are hardy can withstand that change and have absolutely no effect.
Mm-hmm.
But for other people, it's almost like trying to guess how many cigarettes it takes to give you lung cancer. Nobody has that answer.
Right.
It might be one, it might be secondhand. You might get it anyway and never have smoked.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very all across the board. Now, of course, workers tend to have higher exposure rates than the general public. But first of all, everyone listening has it in their blood. Everyone. Polar bears have it in their blood, and they don't use Teflon. And they don't eat microwave popcorn, right? And they don't drink, from a public water system.
Yeah.
So there are all kinds of ways to be exposed.
So it's been found in polar bear blood.
Yes.
In high amounts or just any amounts?
Oh, I don't know the specific amounts right off the top of my head. I'm sorry about that, but it's not insignificant. Most of the Earth's waters have been polluted. In our case, DuPont at Washington Works by Parkersburg, West Virginia, polluted every mile of the Ohio River because they were dumping it right into the river.
So people were getting it. It's like the Aaron Brockovich thing, right? People were getting it in their drinking water and couldn't get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. And, then when there was a no drink or, that there was an order that basically said, look, we don't know how safe this is. So bottled water will be provided by DuPont. The bottled water was also contaminated.
I wonder, was it contaminated because the water itself had it, or it was in the plastic that the water was bottled in? Probably both, right?
It had to do with the stream or creek that they were drawing the water from.
Wow.
And it was smaller amounts than the water system, that it was replacing, but it was still in there. And, now there's like a list of bottled water that's got this family of chemicals in it. It's very interesting. Well, of course, your dental floss, if you brushed your teeth this morning,
Yeah.
lost. I mean, it's really everywhere.
That
And by the
is.
time the EPA decided to do something, we were 50 years in. It's
Mm.
too late. And what probably should scare us most about all of this is that these forever chemicals were basically commissioned by the government in the Manhattan Project. They wanted industry to make an indestructible chemical bond. And they did. So this stuff doesn't break down. 50 years later, it's a little hard to do the right thing.
So I'm wondering if it's because we've had guests on before talk about obviously benzene, like I mentioned. That was a really good show for people who want to go
Mhm.
back and listen to that. But then also, what's that other one? Glyphosate, and parasites. And people are now saying that glyphosate is in the air. We can breathe it in because of the association with corns, sprayed with Monsanto Roundup and all of that stuff, and coming into our fuels, and then parasites also airborne. Is this stuff airborne, do you think?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we were being exposed many ways. It wasn't just our drinking water, or the fact that it was dumped into the river. It was also being, it was also being pushed out into the air. It falls as rain. Our dirt's contaminated. One of our most highly exposed populations was older people who lived right across the river from
Uh-huh.
the DuPont facility. And so, of course, older people tend to drink more water anyway.
Uh-huh.
But these older people also had their own gardens.
Uh-oh.
And by growing and eating their own produce, they were highly contaminated. Because by the time they had raised that produce and actually consumed it, it had been exposed so many times over. I mean, it's being grown in contaminated soil and watered with contaminated rain, or water from your tap that's also contaminated.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's been contaminated again and again and again before it makes it to your mouth. You can't
Yeah.
boil out something like C8.
Oh, you cannot.
No, you cannot. Reverse osmosis is really, that's really it. Now, DuPont did build treatment facilities for us, and they are based on granular activated carbon. But what those systems do is reduce it. They don't.
Sorry, what did you say? They reduce it? You kind of cut out. They reduce it, they don't
Oh, I'm
eliminate
sorry.
it?
Yes, they reduce. Right, they reduce it. They don't remove it.
I see.
So you're getting less. You may be even getting a non-detectable level, but that doesn't mean it's not in there.
Interesting. So what fascinates me is this whole hydrological cycle, and the fact that people are now collecting their rainwater, and they're using rainwater, which is filled with a bunch of different kinds of acids, and then those acids are liberating excess amounts of iron that's in the Earth's crust, and that's getting into our food because the plants can't convert it to copper, and it's like all this kind of stuff that's coming into our own gardens, and we're trying to be healthy. We're trying to, grow our own food, and it's our environment's so toxic now that it's almost becoming too challenging to do that.
Yes, how horrible. So, like, the healthier we try to be, the more exposed we are. That is not fair, right?
So the question is, so how come DuPont is still there? So obviously the people have not protested, or don't know, or don't care. And obviously there's not enough pressure from the government to cause DuPont to move. So things just kind of continue on and people forget about it.
Well, West Virginia has welcomed DuPont always with open arms and continues to try to make them comfortable staying where they are.
Really?
Yes, they're one of the state's biggest employers. So not only has the state, from an economic development perspective, tried to maintain a comfortable atmosphere for DuPont, but also the Department of Environmental Protection in West Virginia was complicit in our poisoning. And the reason I say that is because the public did not know it was in the water. DuPont knew it was in the water, and they did in fact report that to DEP. But DEP thought it was more important to cover DuPont than to inform the public.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Here's something that I'm going to bring up on the page right now that you'll be able to see, and people that are watching live will be able to see. And this goes exactly to what you're saying. So here's a sort of a propaganda website put out by 3M that's called, I'll link it up in the show notes, called PFAS Facts. And here,
Yes.
Callie, is one of the things that is one of their arguments, and it's a good one, to be honest.
Hmm.
It says, should PFAS be banned? It says PFAS makes up a diverse group of chemicals and materials consisting of different categories and classes. And it goes on to say that a ban of all PFAS would eliminate a wide variety of important products that enable many aspects of modern society. So this is the real reason, right? Convenience and
Hmm.
what's the
And
convenience really?
national security.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why.
Convenience and national security. But
Hmm.
that's why. That's why. And our government has a conflict of interest because the Department of Defense are major polluters because of the fact, every military base all over the world.
Hmm.
So if the federal EPA decided it's a toxin and we've got to clean it up, what position does that put the Department of Defense in?
Oh,
You,
right.
you see, they have a massive conflict of interest, and it's in the government's best interest to not call this what it is.
So how is it in military bases? What's going on there that makes it a hotbed for this?
They all do firefighter training,
Uh-huh.
so they're using foams. And those foams easily seep into groundwater from training grounds. Typically, training grounds are pretty much on base. So you can have a water pollution issue there. You still have an exposure issue just from it being, around you. And then, of course, for the people who are actually wearing protective gear, they have another level of exposure. But it's the water pollution on military bases as a result of firefighter training operations.
Wow, that's so interesting. And I'm curious your thoughts about going back a little bit to when you're mentioning the older folks growing their own food in their own garden. Obviously,
Yeah,
that was around, near where DuPont is located. I'm curious, like,
right.
do you think that animal foods provide one more buffer of detoxification through the animal before it gets to us? Do you think? Because
No, I know that it works.
it sounds like gardening, if you have an issue in your area, is
Uh-huh,
dangerous because of this. So what kind of
right.
food do you think is organic food safer, do you think? Or do they not even test for that?
They don't test for that. And there's a couple of problems there. First of all, we only know how to test for any of it because DuPont showed the government how to test for it. It's their process. So when all of this began to come to light in the early 2000s, the government couldn't even test for it. But the other factor is there has been a study done that has examined the food chain, and it began with earthworms, and it moved up, and with every six, layer, like a bird eats a worm, a predator eats a bird, maybe something bigger eats the predator, we eat that something bigger.
Hmm.
With every step of the food chain, the concentration increases, and it goes higher and higher and higher till humans have the most. But what trumps that is babies are born with more than their mama has.
How's that possible?
I wish I could tell you, but I mean, I'm not. Obviously, I'm somebody's mother. I'm not a chemist, but
Right.
that's the fact, and that's baby. I mean, so it's not just that it's in everyone's blood. Every baby is being born with it already in their blood.
Interesting. So, what I'm curious, I'm sure you're connecting the dots because as a radio show host who's done over 650 shows, I'm taking a little bit of what this guy says, a little bit of what this woman says,
Hmm.
and trying to piece all the dots together or connect the dots, I should say.
Right.
And I'm wondering, have you? I'm sure you've thought about this, the role of vaccinations and heavy metals from vaccinations, and how that interplays with a C8 chemical that's in a child's body. Do we know anything about that connection?
What we now know actually is that exposure to these perfluorinated chemicals makes your vaccines inert. It makes them not work. So, how hideous is that? Because
Wow.
there's this argument over what can be caused by vaccines and not. But there's a lot of people that go with the protection of the herd theory, which is to vaccinate.
Right.
But if you're highly exposed, that vaccination is undone. It may not be doing you any good whatsoever.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's very disturbing news all the way around. But it goes back to what you said. It's a man-made chemical. And of course, we should never forget it was made for the Manhattan Project. It was made to last forever. It wasn't made for us to eat or drink or absorb through our skin.
Oh my gosh, it's so fascinating. We are with Callie Lyons. Her website, if you guys want to take a look, is callielyons.blogspot.com. And we're going to take a little bit of a break right now. This is episode 646. We're going to continue the discussion. And if you guys have any questions in the chat room, I'll be monitoring the YouTube chat on Extreme Health Radio. So if you're watching on Facebook, on multiple accounts, or Twitter, go on over to the YouTube section and type your question in all caps, and I'll do my best to answer or ask those questions when we get back from the break. This is episode 646, so we'll link everything that we talked about on extremehealthradio.com /646, and we'll be right back right after this.
You're listening to Extreme Health Radio, and I hope you're enjoying this show. Please share it with your friends by tagging @Extreme Health Radio on Instagram. Stay tuned for new shows weekly.
Yeah, come follow us on Instagram, my friends. If you haven't followed us there, it is just @Extreme Health Radio on Instagram, and we share a lot of cool stuff, upcoming shows, and what our family's up to, and the things that we do every day. So it's a lot of fun to join us there, and we love interacting with all you guys on Instagram, so make sure to follow us there so you don't miss any of the shows. Man, oh man, so this is a really fascinating thing that we're talking about here with the amount of chemicals in today's environment. It's just crazy, crazy, crazy. I'm going to bring up one of our favorite ways to detoxify chemicals and heavy metals, and that is the Relax Far Infrared Sauna, and it's my favorite device for doing just that. And let me play a little clip of one of our former guests, Ken Pressner, and he talked about sauna therapy and what it does to heavy metals and chemicals in the body.
Also saunas, which I was listening to in the break. I'm a great believer in saunas. In fact, I take a sauna myself nearly every day. They're tremendously effective for detoxifying metals and other toxins from the body.
Yeah, I mean, if we're living in today's world, it's so important, my friends, to have a way of detoxification every single day. And here's our dentist. If you guys are looking for a biological dentist, I cannot recommend my friend and our dentist, Dr. Stuart Nunley, one of the best in the world, in my opinion, at healthysmilesforlife.com. If you ever go see him, tell him that we sent you. Tell him hello for us. But here's what he had to say. He was, talk about loaded with heavy metals and chemicals, specifically mercury, and he was almost diagnosed with, I think, Lou Gehrig's disease. And so he had, by removing mercury fillings from people, and listen to how he detoxified his body.
You know what I chose to do? I chose to go very, very slow as I detox. So one of the things that I did is I invested in an infrared sauna, which was huge. That was a big, big part of my healing because, interestingly enough, many times patients who have heavy metal toxicity lose the ability to sweat. And so I was one of those. I could not break a sweat. And the infrared sauna helped me to retrain my body to be able to sweat. It was a huge part of my overall detox.
Doesn't Dr. Huggins say, as long as there's more going out than what's coming in, you're okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right on that.
Yeah, so sauna therapy is just amazing to do every single day. It's what I do. I do it probably about 5 days a week. And this sauna that we're talking about here, the Relax Far Infrared Sauna, we ship it all over the world. And many people order it from different countries, and there's different shipping prices for it. What's great about it, though, is that it doesn't require a big space area in your house. You don't have to knock any walls down or get a guy in there to install it. It sets up in seconds. You can loan it to a friend. Your head sticks out, so from an Ayurvedic perspective, it's ideal because from Ayurvedic medicine, the idea is not to induce that stress of heat on your head. And I like it just for a personal reason because I get to watch documentaries and sit in the sauna and just sweat like crazy. So all of these chemicals come out from your sweat glands, and so it's just essential to do, I think, on at least a weekly basis, once, twice, 3 times a week if you can. And then something else I like to do, actually right before that, is I jump on this thing, Relax Far Infrared Sauna. So it's a a little mini trampoline. And what it does is it detoxifies your lymphatic system, which is filled with millions of one-way valves. And it doesn't really have a pump. Your lymph system doesn't have a pump. So there's no way for those one-way valves to open and close. And jumping up and down, using the G-force of gravity, opens those valves up and it flushes your body. It flushes your lymph system. And then once all that fluid gets flushed and circulated throughout the body, then you jump in a sauna. And it's just one of the best things to do. Here's what our buddy Ty Bollinger had to say about it.
What do you do to treat cancer? What do you do to prevent it? Rebounding is something that I try to do on a daily basis. A little mini trampoline for those people that aren't familiar with the term rebounding, but it's basically just jumping up and down on that little mini tramp. What that does is it stimulates the lymphatic system. Lymphatic system is one of our primary detoxification systems in our body, and most folks don't stimulate their lymph flow, and so the toxicity in their body builds up because their lymph is not stimulated, and the up-down motion on a rebounder stimulates the lymph flow better than just about any other exercise. So I do that almost on a daily, probably 5 days a week. I would say I average doing that.
Yeah, it's just one of the best things you can do for longevity. And here's what Robert von Saarbracher, one of our most popular guests, by the way, had to say about this. And I have to give a little, what do I have to say? I have to make sure that, I can't make any claims like Robert does here. In fact, I'm not even going to play this because he talks about tumor cells and stuff like this. And I can't say that the the Bellicon or any of our products really cure anything. I would be remiss to say that. In fact, the government does not want me to say that. I can't use the C word. So I can just say these things help your body to facilitate an environment that becomes healthier. How about that? So we can't make any claims here. But yeah, jumping up and down on this Bellicon Rebounder is a tremendous way to detoxify your body. And you jump up and down and then get in the sauna. It's just a great, great way to stimulate your lymphatic system and to really become a lot healthier. It's great for circulation. It's the only whole body exercise you can do. There's no other exercise in the world that stimulates every single cell in your body like this. So it's just a great piece of equipment. So if you guys are listening on a podcast, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/646 if you want to check out the Relax Sauna or the Bellicon Rebounder 646, and there'll be more information about it there. And if you're watching on YouTube, though, there should be links below for that. So that's available on YouTube. And we're going to be right back with Callie Lyons right after this. And if you guys have any questions and want to call up on Skype, we'll do our best to take your call. Our Skype handle is Extreme Health Radio. And I'll do my best to take your calls, and we'll be right back.
This is Extreme Health Radio, where we're 100% listener supported. Make sure to join the Extreme Health Academy with thousands of other listeners and get real solutions for your health challenges.
Yeah, my friends. So if you guys want to join us, you can check out a free 2-week trial of the Extreme Health Academy at extremehealthacademy.com. And the coupon would be EHR14, and you can check that out there. And let me bring Callie back on the show and ask Callie, isn't it so important to have some sort of way? There's got to be some solutions to getting this stuff out of our bodies, right? I mean, we're inundated.
Right. We are. And for people who live in the Mid-Ohio Valley, because we've been studied as a population, one of the other things we know about PFOA exposure, it binds to fat. So it binds to fat and it changes your body chemistry. For many people, this means it's easier for you to put on extra weight and almost impossible for you to take it off. Yeah. And being overweight anyway is just a discouraging proposition.
Yeah, right.
But to try everything and nothing works, and it's not your fault. You're overexposed to something. That's a lot of misery right there. If we, talking about the weight loss issue, right? Yeah. But we're also talking about kidney cancer, testicular cancer, thyroid disease, ulcerative colitis, preeclampsia. Many of those can kill you. Ulcerative colitis is such a horrific thing just to deal with. None of these are pleasant ways to live your life. So I know industry likes to talk about how much money, how many jobs, and try to make it a quality of life issue. If you're drinking and eating and wearing poison, you have no quality of life.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's interesting is they never talk about on those like celebrity sort of shows where people compete to lose the most amount of weight. No one's talking about blue light toxicity, non-native EMF, chemicals in environment, the things you're talking about, C8. Everyone's just talking about, okay, eat the right diet and make sure you're working out. And no one talks about these other things. It's crazy.
There can be so much more to it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, wow. I never really thought. So you said that the C8 molecule binds to fat cells, and then
yes.
What does it do from there?
Well, then again, it's a matter of your particular body chemistry. But that basically it just stays and takes hold and builds. It's bioaccumulative. So if we're constantly being exposed, we're adding to our body burden.
That's so crazy. Check out this. I'm going to bring this up for those that are watching. This is interesting. So this is from the Environmental Working Group, and it says here the probable links and then the not a probable link according to, I think, the C3 Corporation. And it says here, probable link, pregnancy-induced hypertension, preeclampsia, which you just said, testicular cancer, kidney cancer, thyroid disease, ulcerative colitis, high cholesterol. And then the not a probable link, which is what they are saying, but this is being disputed, are birth defects, premature birth or low birth rate, stillbirths, miscarriages, diabetes, all other types of cancer, strokes, asthma, neurodevelopmental disorders in children, influenza, autoimmune diseases, Parkinson's, osteoarthritis, liver disease, chronic kidney disease, high blood pressure, and coronary heart disease.
Let me give you a little background on the C8 Science Panel. This is a study of our population because of a class action lawsuit, and this is a groundbreaking way to resolve a lawsuit. When people who live in our communities found out their water was contaminated, there was this class action launched, and the way that it was resolved was to give us the opportunity to participate with blood samples and medical histories so that all the data could be compiled, and almost 70,000 people did, which that's just phenomenal, for living people to be studied in this manner.
Right.
But then DuPont agreed that if diseases were associated with exposure, they would be liable. And they were. So the C8 Science Panel was appointed by the court, and both DuPont and the plaintiffs, the people, got a say in who the science panel was. So these are world-renowned epidemiologists, and they studied a lot of data, and they came up with those 6 conclusions. There wasn't enough evidence to support other conclusions, but that doesn't mean they're not related. It does mean that in our particular population, this is how exposure presented itself. And after that, almost 4,000 people filed personal injury claims against DuPont. And it was their right to do so once a link was found. DuPont spent almost $700 million in a settlement to pay those people. And this week, they asked a federal judge to take it back.
This week?
Yes. I was stunned to read that yesterday.
Wow. That is crazy. Well, I mean,
it actually happened a couple of years ago. So those people have received their settlements. I've never even heard of anybody agreeing to a settlement and then deciding they want to take it back.
I wonder what's required of them if they've already spent that money.
Well, the ongoing agreement was that DuPont and its spin-off company Chemours were each to put $25 million into a fund to pay for the continuing liability, because people haven't stopped getting sick. They still deserve to be part of the, they still deserve the remedy. Although let me say that, even if you get $1 million, that's
It's not worth
You
it.
get cancer, that's not going to take care of you for the rest of your life. That's not even going to pay for your survival care.
So what I'm curious about is in this test that they found with the link that they said, I'm curious because you can go deep on that word link, but when you do find a link between, let's say, kidney disease and the C8 chemical, does all it require for a person to have, like, is all that's required for someone to have that particular kidney disease and then show an exposure to C8 for them to get the settlement? Or do they have to actually somehow further prove that there is a stronger link there? Do you know that?
No. As a term of the class action settlement, DuPont agreed to not fight on those issues. Now, they did. They were hideous to people in court.
I bet.
They tried to blame it on, there was a woman who had an early, she was one of the early cases that kind of helped the settlement come to be.
Okay.
And DuPont lost, but, in questioning her, they wanted to talk about her weight. Her weight isn't why she got kidney cancer. She got kidney cancer because she's been exposed to their family of chemicals. But how hideous is that, to try to shame somebody on the stand?
That's so
but,
crazy.
And then it's just, that's the tactics we see. It's got to be your fault because of lifestyle choices.
Right.
Now, I have to say, to be fair, they've done the same thing to their own workers. I mean, they've known for decades that their workers were getting sick. And in one case, 3M and DuPont decided their workers just had really bad lifestyle issues. It was easier for them to believe that their workers drank and smoked and had bad diets than that it was the chemical.
It's so fascinating because when you look at big mega corporations and typically industries that are tied to government, I mean, you look at, just one industry, and not even counting Monsanto and all the money they paid recently, but just like the pharmaceutical industry with relationship to vaccines, since the early or mid 80s, $4.1 billion has been paid out. And it's my understanding that less than 1% of the people that actually try to get a settlement are actually accepted. So imagine if everyone were accepted, it would bankrupt the entire industry. So this makes sense that DuPont did what they did,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
So crazy.
There's enormous community pressure for our community. There's enormous pressure. If you filed a personal injury claim, our local newspaper printed your name in the paper as part of a list. It's not that it's not a matter of public information, but it became a way to shame people.
Yeah, it's fascinating too. I mean, you just look at how these corporations protect their profits and are concerned only by their profits, and it just makes sense that they're doing what they're doing. It makes complete sense. It's just sad.
I suppose it does to them that profits come before people. It's hard to watch.
Yeah.
It's very hard to watch. And of course, I'm not a native to the Mid-Ohio Valley, but I think sometimes it takes an outsider to see things a little bit different. And of course, as I mentioned, this all began with the death of an entire herd of cattle. 280 cows on one family's property.
Wow.
And then the search for answers led us to know that it's in our drinking water. So being a Kansas girl, I have a little bit of a different perspective on the death of 280 cattle than maybe most West Virginians, right?
Right. Yeah. Totally.
I mean, where I'm from, that's worth at least a hanging.
Right?
At least.
Yeah.
So,
Man.
yeah, but it's very interesting how the process evolved. We didn't know for so long, if it wasn't for the cattle and the family that suffered and their attorney, Rob Ballot, we may not still know. It's odorless, it's colorless. DuPont had to tell us how to detect it.
That's crazy, 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 crazy. We are with Callie Lyons. Her website is callielyons.blogspot.com, and this is episode 646. So we'll put all the links to everything that we talk about at extremehealthradio.com/646. And if you guys have any questions, you guys want to call up on Skype, it should be working. So call us on Skype if you have a question for Callie. And our Skype handle is Extreme Health Radio. And Callie, we have a question here from from Big Fat Mama in the chat, and she asks, I love the name, right? Big Fat Mama.
Yes, all right, you go, Mama.
She says, what does Callie think about cooking with parchment paper?
Well,
bad?
It's lightly coated. In fact, if you have anything that is nonstick, waterproof, grease-proof, and artificially so, you have to at least be suspicious as a consumer. Back when I wrote the book in 2006, anything that had those properties would be related. But some changes been made. McDonald's no longer lines their French fry boxes. Remember when they had those yellow stripes in there? That was a chemical coating to keep your fries warm. It also exposed you to perfluorinated chemicals. So, some things have changed. Some things have gotten better. Industry, though, has not gotten better.
Yeah, I would imagine that they would be in that parchment paper. Let's see another thing here. I work in a dry cleaners with loads of benzene-like chemicals. Are you familiar with ways to remove these chemicals from the system after high exposure? Infrared sauna, fast, chlorella each day, and clay. Do you have any other thoughts on perhaps removal of these chemicals?
No, I do think fasting's important. And the more I know about fasting, and, I mean, short-term, with a plan, not just like 40 days, right? I mean,
right.
That's really good for your body. It really does provide like a reset, almost as though you're a computer hard drive. And so I think that helps. As I've mentioned, heavy people are going to have a harder time, both with losing weight and with shedding the body burden of the chemicals.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wonder if the same sort of solutions for getting rid of glyphosate would help in this case. Do you know if there's because certain things that gets rid of glyphosate are like apple cider vinegar. There's certain chemicals and certain other substances too. I forget. The product from, what's it called? I'm drawing a blank right now. What's the product by Dr. Zach Bush? I forget what that's called. We just had him on the show. Oh, it's called Restore, and he developed that as a glyphosate remedy. And I wonder if those types of chemicals can get rid of CA.
I don't know that specifically, but I do know that there is an effort to produce an antidote.
Really?
That would help to remove it. Yeah. I don't know about the success, but I mean, that could be a step in the right direction.
This is a good one. Do you know of any bacteria or fungi that can break down C8? I experiment with effective microorganisms because it can break down proteins and bones from meat as well. Interesting.
I think there's some interesting research being done with that. And again, since I'm not a scientist, I'm just a mom. I can only explain that to you so far. But yeah, there is research being done. And how fascinating would that be? There's an Australian company that's doing some really interesting things with soil remediation. So I think we're getting closer all the time. The problem though is that industries, polluting and exposing us without our consent is much bigger than the remedies so far.
Let's see. I ran a live stream today. Thank you.
These are really good questions, though.
Yeah, I know, right? Malay says, should we fast with a nursing baby? My opinion is no. Definitely not.
No. You need all the nutrients you can get. And another point about fasting is that if you're going to fast, you need to use the purest water you can to be consuming during your time of fasting, because it's a double whammy if you're only giving yourself polluted water.
Yeah, it's funny because I we have a reverse osmosis from Omica, the brand. It's in our store, and that's what we use. But it's crazy. I was looking on the environmental working group, and you can search by zip code, and they've done studies on the chemicals that are in your water. It's like 24,000 chemicals that are in our water system.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So when you said,
as we know, bottled is who knows, right?
Yeah. Definitely would go with bottled. Malaise wants to know, when you fast, or when you say fast, do you mean not even drink water?
No, I do mean do drink water.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if water's the only thing you're consuming, make sure it is not polluted water.
Do you think, Storm wants to know, do you think distilling your own water is better than bottled?
It doesn't matter with C8. If you distill water, I don't think that removes it. It's the reverse osmosis process. It does remove it. Yeah.
So even distilling doesn't remove it. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's very tricky. And again, like the granular activated carbon. I mean, a Brita pitcher can be a good idea because it uses the same basic idea, but you really have to remember you're only reducing, you're not removing. So you're still going to be getting a certain level of the contaminant. Of course, if you have a filter system and you don't change it often enough, you're making your water worse. So these are things that as consumers we need to be very smart about. We need to know what we're dealing with. Again, because we protect us.
Yeah, that's so crazy. It's so crazy. I just can't believe it. Let me see if there's any other questions here. This is just it really is disheartening because these chemicals, you have to work so hard in today's world. Ramona says here on Facebook, no one tells you can file a claim and you only have 3 years. You can file to the VAERS, but no lawsuits after 3 years. Do you know anything about that?
Well, it's actually not 3 years. And again, this is DuPont and Chemours were supposed to be putting $25 million each into a fund for ongoing litigation, for their ongoing liabilities regarding these diseases. The statute of limitations is 2 years from the date of diagnosis. So now for minors, that's a different situation because they're not expected to decide until they're 18. So, that's a different, but if you're an adult, you only have 2 years from the date of diagnosis. Now, because the class action wave that settled almost 4,000 cases that's happened. It is difficult to find an attorney to take this forward at this point. Yeah.
My goodness. So what's the future? What's currently going on? You said that DuPont just recently in the last week decided to try to pull those funds from the people that won the class action. What new developments are going on right now?
Well, I think the movie Dark Waters is changing hearts and minds. I really do. It's nightmarish, but it's a nightmare that we live every day, and we have since the early 2000s when we started to find out about it. Now, I also have to say that because the conversation around this has been so muddied by government, by industry, there are people who simply didn't believe it until now. Even if you live in our community and see people getting sick, there are people who didn't believe it until you have an Avenger making a major motion picture about it.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And that's like, oh, we're being poisoned. Well, yes, we are. Yeah. So I do think that is changing the landscape a bit. And I'm glad that it is. And of course, if there's anybody who deserves to be played by the Incredible Hulk, it is Rob Bellot, the attorney for the people in this case.
Wow.
To take on DuPont, and he was a corporate attorney, so used to being on the other side of the issue. It took a lot of bravery, it took a lot of courage, and he continues to fight. His current case involves the firefighters and their exposure.
Wow. That's so amazing. It's so, you know, what's even more scary and kind of, it really disheartens me is this censorship going on. Many of you guys that are listening or watching probably know about the documentary called The Root Cause, which was taken off of Amazon because the association between not just neurological diseases, but mercury, and it's linked to cancer and other diseases as a result of these mercury fillings put in by dentists. And you know, and that was removed by Amazon and by Netflix, and all kinds of documentaries are now being removed. And I just wonder how long stuff like this will stay up, you know?
Yeah, right. It frustrates me that industry can kill things that easily. You know, that, you know, just a bit of information, it can almost be just erased by industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was looking up PFOA on Google earlier today, and it said no human health effects. That's absolutely a lie. It's not just inaccurate, you know, it's completely opposite of the truth.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy because we did a show. It's happening now to people like me and people that do, like, we're just, you compare our show to CNN and Fox. I mean, we're nothing compared to them in terms of reach. And so, but they're going after people like us. And on YouTube, for those that don't know, if you're a creator of videos, you get, I think, 3 strikes that go against your channel. And if you get on your 3rd strike, they just basically remove your channel. And we did a show a while back with a lady out of, I think she's somewhere in Europe now. She doesn't even want to say where she is. And her name is, I forgot what her name is, but she works with people with autism. And she uses something called MMS, which is chlorine dioxide or something like that, and she's helping turn around kids that have autism, and Google took away that interview that we did from her and gave us a channel strike for that, and I disputed it, but they said no. And so this is how they're effectively just wiping away interviews and important information. They're just getting rid of this stuff, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's common practice for industry. It's wrong. You know, it's wrong on every level. We had a bit of that. Well, for instance, with my book, when it came out in 2007, you know, the local TV station did an interview in the morning, and you know, they use tape. You know, they take extra film so they can continue to show the story throughout the day.
Right.
It never aired again.
Really?
And a huge font ad appeared as the banner on their website. Wow. So we buy information, or we buy to hide information. And they don't have to dispute things if they can somehow quietly discredit.
Yeah, they're doing such a good job. We did a show with Dr. Thomas Cowan. He's a medical doctor in San Francisco, and we did a show all about his book in relationship to vaccines and immune system health. And the whole thesis of his book is that the pharmaceutical companies are making money on what they call the back end of childhood shots, and that is the long-term chronic diseases that arise as a result of not allowing the immune system to go through measles, because these things are like exercises, right? It makes the immune system stronger. And then if you go back and watch that video that we did with him, just below the video, they have this big banner that says, the benefits of vaccines, and there's a link to Wikipedia. I mean, it's just crazy that, like, they left the video up, but they're trying to control that narrative, you know? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like the junk science thing in a way. We're better than that. Just you know, just first of all, we as a country are better than that. But you know, as parents and consumers, we really have to be on top of the game now, because there is too much misleading information.
I'm sure you're coming up against a lot of that yourself, right, with this book?
Yes, and actually,
Or you
the
can't
good
talk
news,
about
though, I can. Well, a lot of weird things have happened to me since I wrote that book.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's one topic, but we're actually getting ready to update it and do a paperback version so that it can be more accessible. because, when I wrote it in 2006, this was still an ongoing situation. We didn't even know at that point that there was going to be a link to cancer. So everything in the book has held up to time, and it is true, but we can take the story a bit further now. We know more and we can provide more information. I'm never going to get used to being censored, though.
Yeah.
That's a burr under my saddle every time.
So here's a story I just ran across recently that just is so, it's so, I didn't like to hear it, but it's fascinating. So many of you guys that are listening might know of a guy by the name of Sayer G, Sayerji, I think, and he runs, I forget his website he runs, but he runs a really highly trafficked website, and he knew years ago that there was going to be the censorship that's happening now, and so he sort of preempted that. And so what he was telling people all along is, follow us on Facebook if you want, but join our newsletter list, because eventually there's going to be, censorship happening, which is exactly what happened. So he anticipated that, and he told people to get on his email list so that they can stay up to date. And so anyway, they effectively shut down his YouTube channel, they shut down his Facebook account, and they shut down all these social platforms he was using to get the word out. But then he was like, okay, I've got the backup, I've got people on my email list, I can still contact them with stuff we have going on. And then it turns out that his email service provider shut his entire countdown with like millions of newsletter subscribers. Fortunately, he had it backed up and he had those people still saved, but then he did a little investigation and he found out that the email service provider that he was using was being funded partially by pharmaceutical companies. I mean, is that just crazy?
Yes, and too common. It's we'll never know what we don't know, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All we can do is keep trying to get the word out, use the platforms we have, encourage people to share, and oh my goodness.
Be open-minded, be free thinkers, and look for your own answers. If it doesn't seem right to you, keep on looking. Sometimes the best indicator of if something is wrong is your gut feeling about it. And sometimes you're called crazy for that, but follow it because it's usually right.
So when is your soft cover book coming out? Pretty soon?
Well, actually, we are just now beginning that process. Let me go back in time just a little bit. The last book that was written about DuPont, Behind the Nylon Curtain is what it was called. It basically ended up a big court battle that involved DuPont, the publisher, and the author. Because of DuPont's pressure on the publishing company, they did not uphold their contract with the author. They printed far fewer books than was promised. He was not part of a Book of the Month club, which was also promised, right? And they shut it down. It's, to the extent that DuPont didn't have to suffer for that, but the publisher had to pay a settlement to the author for not following the contract. So there's this history of how we do things. I've been very fortunate that academics liked my book first and kind of supported it, and and now we've had that support for a few years, but those same people now they want the message to be out wider. So it's groups like the Environmental Working Group and the Green Science Policy Institute and just some wonderful philanthropists who are helping us to actually buy back the rights to the book, because the publisher is never going to market it. And right. So we're kind of redoing the process, knowing what we know now.
Interesting. I've never heard of the Green Science Policy Institute. Is that a good website?
Oh, yes, it is. Yes. They are so super busy on this issue. They have been very busy educating congressmen and senators and all of their staff members on this family of chemicals, how it impacts them, what legislation could look like. Earlier this year, we had 27 different pieces of legislation aimed at somehow curbing this, studying it, trying to do something for the firefighters. I mean, it took all kinds of different forms. Now, all of those were dropped because of the impeachment.
Wow.
But I'm hopeful that because of the current atmosphere, which was already moving in that direction, and then dark waters and all the energy behind that, I'm hoping that, that the government will do the right thing. But you and I both know we can't wait for that day. We have to be good consumers.
Yeah, that's
we have to be good stewards of the earth, right? And we've got to educate ourselves.
So for those that are watching on video, I brought up a PDF from the Green Science Policy Institute, and it says here, these highly fluorinated chemicals can be found in cookware, paper food packaging, cosmetics, papers, carpets and housewares, clothing and outdoor gear. Avoid this perfluoro or polyfluoro or PTFE ingredients list.
Right. Yeah. And now even if it says PFOA free, if it has a coating, don't trust it, because it might be PFOA free, but it has another derivative. So that, just again, as consumers, we've got to be able to read between the lines. And know too that EPA continues to approve these thousands and thousands of different uses. So even though there was like a voluntary agreement to stop C8 or PFOA, the approval of all these derivatives continues, and it continues to be put on the market all the time.
Yeah, and when you connect that over to the languaging and labels and words and stuff like that, they just change the name of something, much like they do with natural flavors. They just give it a different name, and there you go. It's back on the market.
Yeah, right. So for those of you who are like, oh, microwave popcorn, all you got to do is a brown paper bag, dump your popcorn in there, fold it over. I swear it works. You don't have to have the chemicals to do that.
Yeah.
And the same thing is true with your cosmetics. There's no reason for this family of chemicals to be in your cosmetics. About 50% of cosmetics don't have them. So it's not necessary. So, there again, like the Environmental Working Group, they have a database that can guide you through the health, through the unhealthy maze of cosmetics, and can help you make better choices. So luckily we have some really good people on this, again, like the EWG and the Green Science Policy Institute. Those are sources that consumers can trust.
One final question from the YouTube chat that I thought was relevant before we go, Callie, is one here from Pirate Pete, and he's a regular listener, which is cool. But he asked about ceramic-coated pans. What are your thoughts about those?
It's the coated that's the problem.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are some that are fine, but we've got to be suspicious of any coating that does not have natural properties. So for now, that can be tricky language.
I like the Visions Corning, which is the glass cookware, and the Extrema, which don't have any coating at all. Those are ceramic, but they have no chemicals. And yeah, it's really important, especially with that high heat, to make sure you're using non-toxic cookware, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. And there are some people who would argue that like baking cookies on a Teflon sheet is fine because that's 350 degrees. You're not really getting the kind of heat that is a catalyst for it to move into your food. But it's not necessary. Why risk it?
Yeah, I hear you.
At the same time, a skillet, on top of the stove, that's that gets super hot, especially if it doesn't have something in it. Then you could be talking about polymer fume fever, and that can hit you just boom like the flu. So we've always known about that part. We just didn't realize all there was to know about Teflon and the family of chemicals that are used to make it, and what it breaks down into. Another tricky thing, just real quick, is that there are other chemical compounds that break down to C8 or PFOA, and then they break down no further because of the indestructibility of these forever chemicals.
So what are you
that's
saying?
Another source.
So these chemicals are actually starting out as something else, and when they continue to break down, they become C8, but they weren't that to start with?
Yes. Yeah,
Huh.
that's exactly right.
Wow.
So like longer chain, so like C8 is named C8 because it's an 8-carbon chain.
Okay.
And that was what DuPont chose to call it.
Okay.
Of course, they called it a lot of things to confuse the situation.
There you go.
But so, if we're talking about, C9 or 10 or 12, which isn't what a scientist would call it, but, that's basically the idea. If you have a longer carbon chain, it breaks down to C8 and no further because it's a forever chemical.
That's crazy. Yeah, on that last screen we showed, I mean, it compared BPA and all these other chemicals, and then this thing was just a forever chemical, and so it just won't break down. Those 8 carbon bonds just don't go any further.
Right. Yeah. 1,000 years. If we stopped right now, it would take the environment 1,000 years to heal. Jeez. And when we're not stopping, we're not anywhere near stopping. Yeah. We continue to just create and produce. And right.
Yeah, it's funny. We're not anywhere near stopping, but we're not anywhere near having the conversation that we should stop, because they're just not engaging and wanting to pay out the.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So go see Dark Waters, get inspired, write your congressman. These are all things you can do.
Yeah.
But most important, rely on those really good sources like the Environmental Working Group and the Green Science Policy Institute. People who aren't going to steer you wrong.
Yeah.
And if you have questions, those groups are very good to answer to. Yeah.
Well, Callie, thank you so much for your work, because, there's a lot of amazing people like you out there in the world, and it's really important because, the average person, they might be interested in X or Y or something else, but there's these really radical parts of our health that get affected, and without people like you doing research, we would never know about it. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's just because of my kids. I didn't intend to write about this, but when it came across my desk as a newspaper reporter and my babies are drinking it, it became something different to me at that point. I had to try to understand.
Yeah, I hear you. So your website is callielyons.blogspot.com, and that's where people can keep up to date with your work?
Yes, and also on Facebook, you can find my book, Stain Resistant, Nonstick, Waterproof, and Lethal. Like it, and I post frequent updates there about what's going on. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, Callie, thank you again for your work and for sharing it with us too. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Callie. I'll be in touch on email, and I'll send you the link to the show once it's done.
Great. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Callie. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that show with Callie Lyons. What amount of information. Pretty awesome, right? I mean, we're going to break a little bit of that down, and I can hang out for a couple minutes here, and I hope you enjoyed that show. If you did enjoy it, please pass it on to your friends and let people know about the work that she's doing and the work that we're doing here to help educate. So we're going to be right back. I've got quite a few things to share about that, and I'm curious your take too, so I'll get to some of your questions in the chat room. But in light of what we're talking about, make sure to join our newsletter list on Extreme Health Radio because this is the best way to stay up to date with everything we have going on. So we'll be right back right after this.
Extreme Health Radio is your #1 resource for cutting-edge biohacks, news, and information about how to upgrade every area of your health. Subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.
Yeah, my friends, join us on extremehealthradio.com. Sign up to the newsletter, get access to everything we have going on because we don't know how long we're going to have these platforms. So like Sayur G, make sure to keep up to date with everything we have going on. One thing I wanted to tell you guys about was this really cool product, and it's Aloe Vera. And aloe vera, in my opinion, should be used as a daily tonic for the rebuilding of our gut. And we've got, I think, the best aloe vera that's on the market today. It's an amazing, amazing product. Listen to what Dr. Donnie Wilson has to say about aloe vera.
And then I encourage, we can talk more about this. What do I do to help people speed up the healing of leaky gut? I mean, you mentioned aloe before, and that is one of the herbs that I definitely recommend, using for helping to heal leaky gut. You want to use herbs that are anti-inflammatory and soothing and healing to the intestinal lining. So aloe is a great one.
Aloe is, and it should be, I think, a tonic for people. The Stockton Aloe 1 is the product that we encourage you guys to check out. And, the best solution is really to grow it yourself. But, a lot of times that's really challenging in our world and our busy, fast-paced life. And what's awesome about this is this stuff is antiviral. It's antifungal. It's antimicrobial. It's amazing for healing the digestive tract and for helping to induce these macrophages in our body to produce what they call interferon. And these are things like tumor necrosis factor A. And it does a lot more than just soothe and coat your gut and help restore gut health. It's has over 75 different compounds in it. Everything from vitamins to enzymes to amino acid, this tricky thing called ormus. We did a whole show, which is basically a long chain sugar called a polysaccharide. I mean, the constituents in aloe vera aren't even fully known in the world. And this stuff is hand harvested, it's raw, it's unfiltered, it's unprocessed, it's unheated, it's got no preservatives, no chemicals in it whatsoever. They harvest it by hand and they ship it immediately. It's amazing stuff. I'm telling you guys, you should really look into getting this stuff. And what I like to do is to combine this Stockton Aloe 1, this amazing product, with colostrum. And colostrum is also known for helping the body to be a lot more healthy and to increase the immune system of our body. And I just love combining these two particular products together because I think they're so great. Listen to what Daniel Vitalis has to say about colostrum.
So colostrum is the first food that all baby mammals receive, or all baby mammals, natural baby mammals receive. So when we were born, our mother's breasts were initially filled with colostrum before actually there was any milk available to us. And in an ideal circumstance, that's the first thing we drink. Well, the same is true for all mammals, and it's especially true for cows. One of the interesting things about bovine colostrum, cow colostrum, is that it has a really unique impact on human health. This has been studied for a really long time. There are literally thousands of studies in the scientific literature showing the effects of bovine colostrum on human health, on human immunity, on restoring the gut lumen, the gut tract, repairing damage to the gut, and helping to restore health after things like IBS or Crohn's or diverticulitis or any of the sort of inflammatory bowel diseases. And it does this through a number of actions, but primarily through the fact that it contains all of the known mammalian growth factors. And these proteins that we call growth factors initiate growth in tissue throughout the body. And each type of tissue in our body has a specific growth factor. Well, they're all found in colostrum.
Yeah, this is an amazing, amazing product. And when you combine these two, you can make really cool. I was looking at the videos, and you can make not muffins, but pancakes with this stuff. It's so good. We just got we just ordered a bunch on Black Friday. But here's the deal. Today only, if you guys are watching live, good for you, because Daniel Vitalis and Surthrival is offering a 20% discount. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, go over to our YouTube channel, and there's a link down below, or just go to biocharge.me, and you can find the colostrum there under the digestion, or just put in colostrum or Surthrival, and you'll find it on biocharge.me. But today only, there's a 20% discount. So make sure to go through our link, and then if you do that, also, you'll get a 30-day trial to the Extreme Health Academy too. So anyone who purchases through our store, biocharge.me, will be eligible for a 30-day trial as our bonus and thank you for supporting the work that we do. I'm really just grateful for you guys and your support over our work, or on our work, over the years. And so it just means so much to us. And so we really appreciate that. So make sure if you're watching on YouTube, there's links down below in the description for the Colostrum and the Aloe Vera if you guys want to try it. And thank you again for supporting our work on Biocharge Me. It's like just amazing that you support our work and keep our show going and spread the word. And I'm curious what you guys have to say about all of this, and we'll be right back.
We hope you're enjoying this episode. Thanks for being on this health journey with us, and don't forget to check out biochargeme.com for hundreds of health products to build a better you.
I love that. We have to say build a better you because we can't make any claims about any of the things. Imagine if we were able to make claims. That would be just so cool if we could actually say the things that we want to say like conventional doctors can do. They can say whatever they want. It's just amazing the language that they're allowed to use because they're the ones that are working in cahoots with the government. They have the guns, they have the laws, so they can say whatever they want. I remember sitting in a doctor's office with my mom a couple of years ago, and the doctor was talking about how this was a conventional oncologist, and he was talking about, he leaned over to my mom and said, "Here's how we're going to cure your cancer." And I just kind of looked at him like, wow, it must be so nice to be able to use that word. We can't use that word because we can't really say anything about the products that we promote. So it's just a weird world that we live in. And unfortunately, it's dominated by industry. And, that's why I think that most people are just shocked. Most people are just completely shocked that, DuPont would do this. And, people, it's really interesting because you can really get a gauge on how much people understand how the world works when they are befuddled why the government would allow this to happen. Or if the government can cure cancer, why would they allow this to happen? Like, you can tell someone has spent either very little time studying or thinking about the role of industry in our health. And like we're doing some research before the show, and I mean, check this out. Like this is a website I'm going to bring up. I was going to bring it up on the show, but check this out. This is for those that are watching on YouTube. You can see here 84,000 chemicals in our environment. This is from a website called alternet.org. But I mean, this is crazy. If you're watching or if you're listening on a podcast, it says here, there's what are we doing to ourselves? 84,000 chemicals and only 1% have been tested. This is July 1st of 2015. There are around 84,000 chemicals on the market, and we come into contact with many of them every single day. And as if that wasn't enough to cause concern, the shocking fact is that only about 1% have been tested for safety. In 2010, at a hearing of the State Subcommittee on Superfund, Toxics and Chemicals Health, Lisa Jackson, then the administrator of the EPA, put our current hypertoxic era into sharp perspective. Quote, "A child born in America today will grow up exposed to more chemicals than any other generation in our history." I mean, this is crazy, right? This is absolutely crazy. It just goes on and on about the amount of chemicals. Women are particularly at risk because they generally use more personal care products than men. 25% of women apply 15 or more products daily, including makeup and anti-aging creams, amounting to an average of 168 chemicals. For a pregnant woman, the risk is multiplied as she can pass on those toxins to her unborn child. 300 contaminants have been detected in the umbilical cord of newborns. I mean, this is just like, we can't expect the government or industry to be concerned about our health. I mean, they're just not. And, it does more good. Like, I thought that was a really interesting tie-in that she said with the this chemical called C8 and its relationship to 3M and DuPont and all of our military bases. Because if you think about it, it's like the dental industry finally admitting that mercury fillings, they're not called silver fillings, they're called mercury fillings, are toxic. And it's like, then you have to go back and somehow put together a inability to retroactively file a class action lawsuit, like an anti-grandfather clause of some kind, so that people that were exposed to mercury fillings and got sick 30 years ago aren't going to sue you today. And that's the real issue, is that, if this chemical C8, had to be pulled from the market, then all of these products that they use, that we all use, would have to go away. We'd have to figure out some other way of using these really convenient products. And that's one of the things that they try to do. And so ultimately it comes down to all of this stuff that we see in the media and in the government it's a theater. It's not even real. And these people that are running our government and that run things don't have our best interest in mind. And the thing that we can do is we can't focus on changing the government. We can't focus on changing industry. And I think those are really good places to put your time. I mean, that's really great. It's better than doing something else with your time. But to qualify your happiness and your life based on whether or not these government agencies or industry is actually going to make a change that benefits us as humans is never going to happen. And so the ego, which is a great thing, we need to have an ego. A lot of people say we got to stuff the ego and get rid of the ego. The ego, if there was no ego, there'd be nothing in existence, because it's the ego that creates things, right? That goes out there and changes things and stuff like that. So it's nothing wrong with having an ego, but the problem with the ego is the ego wants to like fix these macro problems, not realizing that the real solutions lie in the micro. So the ego wants to fix global warming. They want to say there's this problem with global warming, we have to fix it. The ego wants to fix, starvation around the world and fix these massive worldwide problems when we really can't do much with that. Where we need to start is the micro. And if all of us focused on becoming healthier and detoxifying every single day, that changes our mentality, that changes the way our brain works, that detoxifies our brain from polyunsaturated fatty acids, from iron deposits, from all this kind of stuff that's getting into our brain. And it allows us to think clearly and to focus on changing our little world and the people we come in contact with. And that's what I'm a huge advocate of, is changing our environment and changing the people that we hang out with and changing where we spend money and who we donate to and who we buy products from and where we put our attention. These are the things, in my opinion, that we all need to focus on for change, and forget about like all this global stuff going on in the world. We really need to start focusing on our micro environment. And I think that's just super, super important. So that's what we advocate. And I'm curious what you guys think. I'm going to check you guys out in the chat room on the YouTube channel and see what you guys think. Let's see. A lot of cool people. Lipstick contains lead, says Pirate P. Yes. Detox regularly and avoid toxins to stay healthy. That's the only thing we could do. The number one killer out there is medical doctors and conventional healthcare. That's so true. Do your best to stay away from medical doctors if you can. They're great in times of acute crisis, but man, if you can stay away from their doctor's offices and chronic issues, you'll be healthier for it. Truth Seeker 2019 says exactly, if it is FDA approved, stay away. It's toxic, man-made synthetic crap. Be your own doctor. It's true. It's true. It's true. It's true. Yeah, and so, there's a good book I read back in the day called Selling Sickness, and it's exactly what they're doing, is they're selling you the convenience of these products, and you're becoming sick because of it. And that's really what's going on, and it's unfortunate that this is the case. And I think it's really important for us to focus on what we're doing every day, like self-care. What are you doing every day to stay healthy? Really critical, because like Callie was saying, there's no end in sight. They're going to continue creating these chemicals. And, I was reading something a while back, 60,000 new chemicals in our environment since the early 1960s, 84,000 chemicals that are not even less than 1% are tested. All these toxins and chemicals that are in everything that we touch, everything that we breathe. I mean, it's a toxic soup out there. So trying to change that is probably not going to be a place where you're going to find success. Just focus on what you have going on in your life and do those things. That's why I'm a big advocate of bringing tools into your environment that help you change. And that's the best way to stay healthy, in my opinion, is to change your environment, alter your environment so that it supports your mission and your journey. And that way, when you do that, then you could do, I mean, that's a passive type of approach, right? Changing your environment. The problem is it takes a little bit of money to do that, and it's an ongoing process, like buying a water filter, one of the best things you could do, getting a Magnetico mattress sleep pad, changing your light environment, changing your EMF home environment. These are all things that are a one-time thing. They're passive things that you could do that really make a dramatic impact on your health. And when you do those things, you don't have to do anything different. You can continue living whatever kind of lifestyle you want, but you've reduced the burden on your immune system to such a significant degree that now your immune system has a little bit more energy. Then you can start doing some things that focus on that energy, creating ATP in your mitochondria and building energy in the body. And when you do that, then it becomes a snowball effect, and you can really start making dramatic changes in your health just by focusing on these things. And I think that it's really important to alter our environment, because it's our environment that's causing us to be sick. And when we fix our environment, then it's really important for us to then start focusing inward, because there's no use focusing inward when you have an environment that's causing disease, right? You can do all the changes you want to your diet, but if you're sleeping next to a 5G tower, for example, it doesn't really matter what you do with your diet. You got this 5G cell tower, right outside your bedroom. You got to fix that, or move, or do something to mitigate that. So really important. Some of the things I have, I mean, you mentioned here shungite, Storm. I have a shungite necklace on right now. I don't know if you can see that. I wear it underneath my shirt. I have a Blue Shield portable device here. I got this thing. I don't know what it does really, but it's designed to change the structure of devices. And so there's lots of things that you can do in your environment to help mitigate a lot of this stuff. And so Beck, hey, good to see you here, Beck. This is great. Pirate Pete, Truth Seeker, you guys are awesome. Storm says, I use incandescent bulbs since I learned that. Yeah, big fan of incandescence. It's really important to alter your light environment too. Really, really important. So we're living fake lives, and we're living these lives that are so disconnected from nature. And we're talking about this on the Zach Bush show, that it's the connection that's the driver of disease, because he's showing in the same way there's a micro and a macro in terms of like our cells and DNA and things like that with the small world and the big world, the same thing is occurring in our body. And when we're disconnected from ourselves, we're disconnected from our family line, which is huge. We're disconnected from our friends and family. We're disconnected from our mission in life, what that mission is. We're disconnected from source, from God. We're disconnected from the earth. And we don't live in this cycle of life that we're supposed to be living in. When we pull ourselves out of that and start living this artificial life where we're looking at screens all day and we're not interacting with other human beings and receiving the biophotons from them and interacting with other human beings, when we're disconnected in all those different ways, that's where disease starts to fester and to manifest. And so, like Robert Young said on our show, cancer is a verb. It's not a noun. So when we start changing our languaging and understanding that these things are not nouns, it's not a thing, it's actually a verb. Disease is a verb. It's how are we cancering ourselves today, or how are we sickening ourselves today? And nouns are unfortunately solid state. Typically they're unchanging, and they are what they are, right? They're a physical manifestation of a static state environment, and that's really difficult to change. But a verb is an action. A verb is something that changes with time based on environment and stimulus. And so when we figure out that we're cancering ourselves, we can uncancer ourselves as well. And so this creates an environment where we have a lot more control over our phenotypic genetic expression, because we can control our gene expression through the environment and lifestyle that we live. So when we understand we have more control like that, it makes so much sense, and it helps us tremendously feel like we have a fighting chance. We can alter these things. Big Fat Mama says, or Pirate P says, keep your cell phone on airplane mode all the time, or just get rid of your cell phone, which is what I did. I never even had a cell phone, so that's my solution to that. Big Fat Mama says, Justin, do you have any episodes on stroke or heart arrhythmias? Yeah, we do. We did a show with StrokeDoctor.com. What's his name? Dr. David Steenblock. We did a show with him. In fact, funny you bring that up because a friend of mine suffered a stroke on Halloween of 2019, October 31st. A week prior to that, he had had a flu shot for the first time in his life. Is there a connection between the flu shot and having a stroke? I don't know. Interesting connection though, right? And so it's a fascinating connection. So yeah, if you guys want further help with some of your health issues, join the Academy, because I'm in there just about every day, and we're doing we're building this health database with answers to all of your health questions, and it's a really great community for you to join. And there's a 14-day trial if you guys want to check it out. If you're watching on YouTube, the link is below. It's Extreme Health Radio or extremehealthacademy.com or the coupon code I should say is EHR14. But yeah, we have done some information on arrhythmias, and I was helping someone. There's a lot of information about arrhythmias and strokes that we talked about. So inside the Academy. So Storm, do you have a video on box breathing? Pete, I've heard that breath work is very helpful to overall health. Breath work is key and critical. So biggest thing you can do for your health as far as breathing and carbon dioxide is to tape your mouth when you sleep, which is what I do. Put some mouth tape on. You can get it on Amazon for $12 that will last you 3 or 4 months. And mouth tape when you sleep. Best thing I've ever done. I have a playlist on breathing. Cool. Nose breathing. Yeah. I'm getting some for Christmas. Cool. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. Really great to see you guys. Awesome. Bob Dylan, Truth Seeker, Pirate Pete, Big Fat Mama, Rebecca, who's a member of the Academy. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us today, and a bunch of other people that I missed over at the beginning. So I appreciate you guys a lot. Really great to be here. Julia is really, really great. So this was extremehealthradio.com/646, as we'll put all the show links to that for today's show, along with Extreme Health Academy, along with all the different websites that we talked about. I'll put all of those at 646 as well, as the products that we talked about as well. If you're looking to get some Sauna or some Rebounders or some Stockton Aloe 1 or the Colostrum, 20% off today. So if you guys are watching live, make sure to grab that 20% off. Go through our link, and that way it will be credited to us, and we'll make a commission, and that will support our work. But then also as a bonus, for any product that you purchase, we'll give you a 30-day trial to the Academy, just as a thank you for joining and supporting our work. So you guys are amazingly awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope you have a great Christmas. I haven't even started my Christmas shopping. Oh my gosh, I'm so far behind. So I hope you guys have started your Christmas shopping and a little farther along than I am. But thank you a lot for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's really cool to be, I just feel honored to be doing this show with you guys. And it's just an honor for me to be here. So thank you all again very much. Love you all. If you need to contact me, just contact me, Justin at extremehealthradio.com, and you can find out. I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I possibly can. So love you guys all. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. And I will not see you on Monday. We're going to take a little time off. We're going to decompress a little bit, have some time off, and enjoy the Christmas holiday season. So love you guys. I'm not sure when we're going to be back, maybe next Friday or the following week, but love you all. Let me know if you need help with any of the products or have any questions about anything. Let me know. Love you guys, and I will see you soon.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse